Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name's Stephen. I'm a traditionally published author. Do I need to say that anymore? I don't know. Like, subscribe, do all that sort of stuff. I post videos every week. I've got a bunch of books out. Amazon, Waterstones, Indigo, if you're in Canada. Go have a look. Anyway, today I'm talking about AI. There's been a lot of stuff floating around and it's really annoying and there's lots of things to dig into. And I'm going to try not to swear, but I might. So here's your fair warnings. So let's start with some of the uncomfortable news stories that have come out. Artwork, that's the first thing. There's been a number of art projects that have come out. People have been taking original art, using AI to create other pieces of art, and the original artist does not get any credit, does not get any information linking to them, does not get any reward, monetary value for creating that original piece of art. And all of this came to a head most recently with Christopher Paglioni. He has a new novel out from Tor. And as it turned out, the cover of his book was used based upon another piece of art with some AI added to it to make it something else. And of course, that attracted a lot of negative attention. Now, is it going to affect his sales? Not really. People are just going to buy his book because he's a very popular author. I haven't read the book, so I don't know what it's like. But it's not a good look for Tor. It's a stain on them more than him. The fact that they've actually gone and done this. It's one thing where if you get a book cover on the back, it'll say original image from Shutterstock, which they've obviously paid for, and then an artist has done some additional creative work on top of that to tailor it for the book cover. And that's fine because they're paying someone, and at some point down the line, the original artist will be paid. Doing it this way, going online and feeding a bunch of information into an AI and it just spits out a piece of artwork, you have no idea where it comes from. And the original artist is not going to get any money for it. So that's not a good look for publishers, and it's something they're going to have to be very mindful of going forward, I think. The second thing I wanted to talk about was specific writing AI programs. There's one that's out there that recently someone posted about online on Twitter that I didn't know anything about. Everyone talks about ChatGPT, but this was another one. This is an organization where on their website it says things like, we don't encourage you to plagiarize books, that's against our rules, and you shouldn't do that. What they actually want you to do is write a completely original novel of your own and then feed it into their program, and then based upon that and other writing samples that it's gathered, apparently at random, who knows what's been fed and how can they control possibly what's gone in there? It'll then spit out another story or a novel. They keep saying it's a writing partner, it's something to help you with your writing. But if you're feeding in completed novels that you've done, how is that possibly a writing partner? All it's doing is taking a bunch of stuff that you've fed it into and trying to create a style based upon that. I mean, it's one thing if you're using it to come up with ideas, that's something else. Like if you're struggling for names and you go onto the internet and say, I'm trying to do some names, and you feed it some ideas and it spits out a name, that's one thing. But to get it to write short stories or whole novels is just completely nonsense. The fact this thing that's called pseudo-write, but they've spelt it wrong, it should be PSEU, because clearly it's not writing, it's just using AI to write any novel, any story is complete nonsense. Because it can come up with ideas, but ideas are cheap. Ideas don't mean anything. Writers aren't struggling for ideas. They're struggling to find a story that they want to develop into something that's interesting enough. And AI isn't going to look at the ideas that you fed it and go, actually, there's a lot of that out at the moment in the industry, or I'm not sure this is going to work for you. It doesn't care. It has no thought processes. It is a machine. You feed it a bunch of stuff, it will give you an answer, whether that's good or not. And then if you then pass it on to other people, they'll very quickly tell you. A number of publishers, short story magazines, and a bunch of other ones online have also had to add to their submission guidelines recently saying no AI stories. They had a massive glut because once these tools came out, people thought, yeah, well, I'll have a go, why not? It's easy, writing novels easy. Fed it into this machine and spit it out. And then now sort of saying, don't do it. We can tell when you've done it. Don't try and do this. And it's ridiculous to try and have to add that to things. I know people are always looking for shortcuts, that's natural, but in a creative writing field like artwork or writing, it's absolutely batshit, the fact that it's based upon not only ideas and the thoughts behind them, but the themes and what that means to the individual and how it relates to the people who read it. It's based upon your experiences. An AI is just an empty box. You feed it in some words, it jumbles them around and spits them back out. That's not writing. That's not storytelling. That's just random. It's the whole thing of, if you give enough monkeys typewriters, eventually one of them's going to write the works of Shakespeare. It's basically that. The other thing I've seen some people doing with these AI tools is asking it to write a story in the style of someone else. So to say, write me a short story about this in the style of Joe Abercrombie. And what that means is the AI tool is going to go out onto the internet and scrape all information it can find relating to Abercrombie. Every review, every comment, everything that people's talking about, his name that pops up, it'll just gather it together, try and form some kind of a semblance of a style. It'll probably scrape his novels because there's samples out there all over. And why wouldn't it do it? You're not going to tell it not to do that. It's not going to be deciding what's good and bad. It'll just take anything that's related and it'll spit out a kind of story. And it'll probably be a reasonable assumption. Essentially, that's AI programmed fan fiction. I mean, if all you're doing it is for a bit of fun, and then you read the story and that's it, you're not trying to then sell that or use it in your own, then that's one thing. But I don't see how these tools are actually going to do anything. People are saying they're going to change publishing. They're not. They're a gimmick. They're a weird, silly, fascinating, obscure thing. That's another ridiculous shortcut that people who have no talent, no patience, no creativity, and frankly, they're not writers, are going to think, I can use this and this will make me a writer. No, it won't. It'll make you a lazy so-and-so, to put it very, very politely. Probably because YouTube's a bit weird about swearing now, so I'm not going to use the C word, but you know the word I want to use. There are some novels coming out that have some connection to AI, which is really weird, and it's just an odd quirk that there again isn't going to change the industry. Recently, One World signed someone called Stanton with a ChatGPT inspired adult debut novel. And this novel is titled Benny the Blue Whale, a ChatGPT fantasy in chaos. Someone says, when a generally original book crosses your path, you sit up, said the acquiring director. Bollocks. Clearly it isn't. Someone fed an idea into a fed an idea into this ChatGPT thing, and it spat out an idea, and based upon that he thought it was really funny and really hilarious, and he sent it off to a publisher and they thought it was great. Now it's going to be published. And apparently this novel is a hilarious and heartwarming tale of adventure, friendship and self-discovery, and this is about the story of a blue whale with a tiny penis. So, what fun! It's a silly, quirky oddity. That kind of novel isn't, it'll generate buzz simply because of what it is, not the actual story. Not because it's going to change the world, not because it's particularly interesting. It's an oddity, it's a weird thing. Like when 50 Shades of Grey came out, some of the sales were because of, ooh, it's exciting, it's titillating and it's dangerous, and so people bought it, and it's like public porn almost. You're allowed to read, but you're not really, and ooh, aren't I naughty? And it's very kind of that. This is the same kind of thing. Oh, that's a bit interesting, let's have a look. And you read it and you think, oh, that's okay. And then you'll see hundreds of them in charity bookshops in the years to come, because people have read it and then so what? It hasn't changed their life. It's a bit of a silly book. That's it. The author might go on to do something else with it that's actually creative and original. Who knows? This might be the only novel they ever get. And based upon this, if this is their only talent, they're having to use AI to help them write, it's not a good start really, I'd say. So they could crash and burn. They might go on and do something else. It would be nice if they did something original, but who knows? Publishing is a weird business. The thing is, AI is a useful tool. It's useful in many, many other areas, and we use it in medicine and engineering and science, and it's really practically useful. But using it in creative arts is just lazy, and it's a shortcut, and it's for those people who think, oh, it's easy, I can do that, I'll have a go. And the other thing some people have said is obviously writers and artists feel threatened. Well, we don't, because we're not in competition with a machine. It isn't going to come in and then 9 out of 10 books on the shelf are going to be written by AI. They're just not, because it doesn't work that way. It's an empty box. It has no soul, it has no thoughts, it has no ideas. It's just generating random stuff. That's what it's there for. I have a writing forum with a bunch of writers on there. Someone will post a sample of work and they'll get feedback from people on this is working, that isn't working. There's none of that in an AI process. If you then sent it off to be edited, say you wrote a book with an AI and then you sent it to the publisher and the publisher says, oh yeah, that's quite good, let's go with this. Now we need to edit it. The AI isn't involved at that stage. You can't tell it to go off and do these things because it needs a person to then say, make these changes, this works, that doesn't work, the flow here isn't working, the character here isn't strong enough. So it's still going to have a person working on it, and therefore it's the original person who probably fed it the idea in the first place. So it's not you as a writing partner, it's you using it as a cheat code. But no mainstream publisher will take a real novel that's been completely done by AI. Yes, I've just mentioned that Benny and the Blue Whale because it's a weird, silly oddity and it's the first one, and there might be a handful more. But in terms of fiction written by AI, I'm not worried. I think it's just laziness. I think it's a weird, silly oddity that's come up because AI has gone in this direction. I think it's for people who have no skill and they just want to try and use this and have a go. Why not? A lot of people say, oh, I want to write a novel one day. Well, bang a bunch of info in here and it'll do you one in 5 minutes. There you are. You can say you've written a novel. Are you actually a writer? Well, no, you're not. So if you are trying to get published traditionally or self-published, then I wouldn't be worried about AI. It's just one of these weird things that comes up. It'll come up in the zeitgeist for a while. People talk about it. Little bits and pieces will happen around the edges and then it'll go away and they'll use it for something else that it should be used for. Makes a lot more sense. Like we said, science, medicine, technology, engineering, all of these kind of things, massive computational things, using AI to drive information, to gather data and based upon that come up with results that's a lot more interesting and useful for medicine and so on. That's where I think AI will be the most beneficial. In terms of fiction and creative writing, it's not going to really change anything. I'm not worried. I'm going to keep writing my novels the same as I was before, and I'm not threatened by AI. So don't worry about it too much. Have a look at these novels if you want to. I'm not going to bother. I'm just not interested enough to think there's going to be anything there for me worth reading. I think it's just laziness. So that's what I'm going to talk about for today. I'll be back next week with another video.